Hey guys! Today we'll be recapping the Manhwa, The Last Straw. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, as it really helps our channel grow. Thanks. In the heart of a storm, where rain lashed against the windows like desperate fingers seeking entry, the night concealed a sorrow that gripped the Marquis Renard's mansion. With icy fingers, it was the night Arabella, his beloved daughter, went missing without a trace. As lightning split the sky, illuminating the darkness with its jagged brilliance, Marquis Renard and his wife embarked on a relentless quest to find their missing child. Each passing hour felt like an eternity, each false hope a cruel twist of fate. Though everyone thought it wouldn't take long to find her, Arabella was never found. The news that Marquis and his wife were searching for their missing daughter spread far and wide like wildfire, but amidst the chaos and confusion, one truth remained unshakable: Arabella was gone, leaving behind a void that no amount of searching could fill. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, yet Arabella remained elusive, a ghost haunting the halls of her family's once vibrant home. Countless individuals showed up at the manor, each claiming to be the lost daughter, but it was one disappointment after another. None could fill the void in the Marquise's heart. On a night much like the one Arabella had vanished, when her mother was sitting in her room, a figure appeared at the door, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Clad in a red dress, with innocence shining in her eyes, the girl entered and said, "It's time for dinner, mother." But as her mother's gaze fell upon her, a name escaped her lips, not Arabella, but Anita. She moved towards Anita, kept her hand on Anita's face, and in that moment, the weight of grief and longing lifted, replaced by a bitter realization. She said, "Anita, while you get to enjoy all these luxuries, I can't even imagine what hardships my Arabella must be going through." Anita looked at her mother with grief in her eyes when her mother said, "You may leave now." Anita's world shattered into a million fragments as the slap of reality stung her soul. With the slap on her face, her mother shouted, "I told you to leave!" Anita squeezed her hands and turned. Her mother sobbed, "Arabella, my Arabella," while Anita was taking each step back. She could hear her mother sobbing, "Everything Anita has should have been yours, Arabella." In the echoes of her mother's sobs, she found solace in the bitter realization that she was but a shadow cast by the absence of Arabella. Descending the staircase, each step was a silent testament to the unspoken tragedy of Anita's existence. After they lost Arabella, Marquis and his wife were forced to have another child to continue their lineage. While looking at the hanging picture of her parents, Anita thought to herself, "That child was me, Anita. I guess they couldn't bring themselves to love their second child they were forced to have because they felt too guilty toward Arabella." Growing up in a world where people only thought about Arabella, Anita had heard so many harsh words for her. She heard a maid holding a beautiful gown talking to others. "If Lady Arabella were alive, she would have been able to wear dresses like this," the other replied. "She had her mother's silver hair, so this color would have suited her." Lady Anita, on the other hand. Anita, sitting in a garden, was thinking, "There was only one person who actually paid attention to me, Axion, Archduke Licade's son, successor, my fiancé, and my only friend." Only Axion saw Anita for who she truly was, offering her solace amidst the storm of her existence. In his eyes, she found refuge from the storm, a glimmer of light in the darkness that threatened to engulf her whenever another fake Arabella came to the manor and distracted her parents. Axion would invite her to the Lacate Manor. There, she could just be Anita, instead of the girl who stole everything that should have belonged to Arabella. Anita reflected on the miraculous day when Arabella unexpectedly returned. "But one day," she said to herself, "as if to reward my parents' efforts." Upon spotting their missing daughter, her parents flinched, recoiled in disbelief, unable to trust their own sight. They dashed towards Arabella, yelling her name. A young girl dressed in tattered clothing stood there, in a state of disrepair. Arabella had finally returned, confirming her identity through the imperial holy relic. Her parents were ecstatic, embracing each other with joy upon finally locating their daughter after extensive efforts. She was indeed the real Arabella Renard, missing for 18 years. Upon finding her, her mother genially remarked, "My darling Anita," who was watching her parents, loving Arabella dearly, and seeing her thought, "I knew this day would come." Anita observed the activity throughout the entire household as her father addressed the workers. "We need brighter colors," her mother added her concerns. "She has had a rough life, so we must make her room bright and warm so she feels safe." A maid holding a carpet said, "I will bring another carpet." On the dining table containing various types of foods, everyone was gathered around Arabella. "Have some more dessert, my lady," a maid offered. Her father noticed her state and expressed worry. "You're far too skinny, my dear," her mother, while adding her concern, advised. "We need to feed her more nutritious food. I'll tell the chef to double the food budget," while displaying lovely dresses to Arabella. Her mother remarked, "Your dresses will be much fancier." Then Anita, thinking about jewels, she said, "Arabella should receive all of our family jewels as well, they belong to her in the first place." While thinking about fancier dresses, foods, and shows, Anita said, "My parents wanted to give Arabella the best of everything. That included both things I never received and ones that were already mine." As Anita strolled down the hallway, she was startled by a voice she heard. There must be a way to break off Anita's engagement to the Archduke's son. She was stunned hearing this. It turned out to be her parents murmuring to each other. Her father said, "We can't just break it off since the Archduke himself made the match." Her mother expressed her perspective, but His Grace addressed the proposal to Marquis Renard's daughter. Her mother, with evident concern, expressed, "If Arabella hadn't gone missing, she would have been the one to marry into their family. If we can find a way to break off the engagement, that spot will naturally become Arabella's." Her father pondered and said, Her mother yelled, "Bella deserves only the best, and I want to ensure she gets all of it." Marquis Renard embraced his wife warmly, while comforting her, and whispered, "My dear," while she was yelling, "It's heartbreaking, all of it belonged to Bella, but then she came along." He hugged her tightly while expressing his perspective. "I feel the same way. I never wanted to let Anita marry into the Archduchy. Arabella is a much more suitable lady of the house than Anita. We shall do our best to make it come true for her," her father said, while Anita was overhearing the whole conversation, wearing a red gown, standing outside the door, shocked to hear all this. "Anita must stay here and continue helping me with the family business," her father suddenly added. Then, a figure emerged, ethereal and commanding attention with his golden mane and piercing gaze. His presence, though unexpected, offered a brief respite from Anita's tumultuous thoughts. "What's got you so distracted? It's been a while since we've seen each other." His voice, like a soothing melody, reached her ears, stirring emotions long suppressed. Anita, laden with sorrow, struggled to articulate her anguish. "Oh, my apologies," she persisted, striving to reassure him. "I've been a bit busy lately. I am sorry for turning down your visits and—" Knock, knock. As they lounged in the opulent chamber, surrounded by decadent snacks atop a polished table, an ominous knock interrupted. "Are you expecting someone else besides me?" the boy inquired, his brow furrowed with concern. Taken aback by the unexpected appearance of someone, Anita exclaimed, "Of course not. Knock, knock." A second rap echoed through the room, irritation evident in her demeanor as the persistent knocking at the door interrupted their exchange. "Excuse me for a moment," Anita said. Clack. She swung the door open, a voice rang out. "Anita!" Standing before her were her mother and Arabella, their presence commanding attention. "Why don't you introduce Arabella to Lord Axion?" her mother commanded, her words a dagger plunging into Anita's soul. "She is your sister, after all. I'm sure he would like to meet her," she persisted. Upon hearing this, Anita's fury ignited, her spirit brimming with defiance as she contemplated the possibility of losing the one thing she held dear. In the crucible of adversity, Anita found the ember of her strength, fueling her determination to defy the whims of fate and protect the love she held dear. However, when it comes to Axion, she pondered, I will do everything to ensure they don't steal him from me. The air crackled with tension as her mother stood there, commanded to introduce Arabella to Axion. Inside, Axion's curiosity piqued as he wondered who stood at the threshold and asked, "Anita, who is it?" Anita's demeanor momentarily faltered when confronted with Axion's inquiry. Courteously and subtly, she turned slightly and uttered, "One moment." Then, she swiftly exited, forcefully closing the door behind her with a resounding slam. She left her mother bewildered as she confusedly asked Anita, "What are you?" Furiously, Anita declared, "I refuse." Shock painted her mother's face as she attempted to conceal her comprehension and stammered, "What?" Anita clarified her stance. "I will not introduce Arabella to Axion," she repeated. "I refuse." Her mother's shock turned to outrage. "What?" she yelled at her. "You're always like this." Arabella, positioned behind her mother, bewilderedly gazed and attempted to intervene, but her mother responded with anger. "Leave this to me, Arabella. She must be scolded." Her mother's fury escalated as she glared at Anita and said, "When will you stop being so selfish? Don't you feel sorry for your sister?" Undeterred, Anita snapped back, "It doesn't matter how sorry you feel for her. You can't just barge in and enforce your daughter on him." Anita added, "You're being rude to the Archduke's son, mother!" Once again, her mother shouted at her, "How dare you!" to bring her awareness. "How could you be so selfish and awful, Anita? You should be sharing with your sister." While Arabella was fidgeting continuously, confused at the situation, her breath quickening, she made an effort to halt her mother. "Mother, please don't." Arabella felt dizzy, stumbled, and suddenly collapsed, her world spinning out of control. Panic engulfed her mother as she cried out for her. "Bella! Bella! Bella, darling, please wake up." Anita, stunned by the turn of events, murmured, "I'll call for a doctor." With a cluttered rush, she turned and disappeared inside. Anita dashed through the halls with urgency, her heart racing. She hurriedly entered a room, nearly bumping into the maid. The maid, shocked, yelled, "Eek! A lady!" Anita, gasping and panting, wasn't able to utter a word. The maid flinched and asked, "Why are you in such a hurry?" Anita barely uttered, "Call for a doctor." The maid was shocked hearing this. "A doctor?" Anita hurriedly explained to the bewildered maid. Arabella fainted in front of the first reception room on the first floor. The maid gasped and could just ask, "A lady Arabella fainted?" The maid's trembling hands dropped the flower pot she was holding, mirroring the shock that rippled through Anita. "Yes, my lady, I'll call for a doctor right away," the maid said. Anita breathed deeply and turned back. Her thoughts raced faster than her feet as she retraced her steps. Each stride echoed the pounding of her heart, and her mind swirled with suspicion. The doctor who examined Arabella the day she arrived assured us she was in perfect health, so why would she faint so suddenly? Anita's mind whispered, wrestling with doubt. Suddenly, she paused, lost in her tumultuous thoughts. A chilling realization gripped her. Was this her plan all along? Axion, retaining his captivating demeanor, sat with inquisitive eyes. Arabella nervously sat in front of Axion, and suddenly her trembling voice shattered the tense silence as she stuttered. "I apologize for barging in like this." To alleviate the tension, she included, "Anita should be back soon." Axion offered a curt acknowledgement and said, "I see," his piercing gaze boring into Arabella, sending shivers down her spine. Arabella was sweating, scared, just pondering silently within her own mind. "Mother told me he was a polite young nobleman, but he's a bit scary." In the midst of Arabella's internal turmoil, memories flooded her consciousness like a raging river. The image of her concerned mother while she was just worried about Anita flashed before her. She must have been shocked seeing me faint like that. "I'm glad it didn't take me long to wake up," she recalled. Her mother's concern echoed in her mind. "Are you all right, Arabella?" "Arabella, I'm coming to consciousness," just responded. Where is Anita?" To steer clear of discussing Anita, Her mother simply remarked, "Don't mind her. Are you feeling all right?" After an epiphany, her mother uttered with a grin on her face, "This is it. You should go inside and introduce yourself to Lord Axion." While her mother was trying to pull her, Arabella could just utter, "Huh, what about Anita?" Her mother hastily replied, "She'll be back soon. Go ahead and wait in there." Arabella was trembling, sitting in front of Axion, questioning herself. Maybe he's mad that I barged in without asking him. Just like Anita said. Arabella felt extremely anxious, finding it increasingly difficult to remain seated. She yearned to flee and found herself engaging in silent self-talk within her mind. This is so suffocating. I don't want to be here. She squeezed herself while thinking about her parents' words. But I don't want to disappoint mother and father. Her father had said to her, "I am sure the Archduke's son will take a liking to you." Her mother had reprimanded her, "You have to make a good impression." "All right, I apologize for making you uncomfortable," she finally managed to utter, her voice betraying a hint of apprehension. Axion's response pierced the tension like a blade. "You have no reason to apologize to me. You weren't the one insisting on this unpromised meeting." Arabella's heart skipped a beat as realization dawned upon her. Oh, did he hear everything we said outside? The shock of the possibility reverberated through her, leaving her speechless for a moment. Axion continued, offering a slight smile along the way. "And as you said, Anita will be back soon." As she locked her eyes on him, a stream of thoughts flowed through her mind. He seems like a different person when he talks about Anita. Anita's mind swirled with a torrent of thoughts as she treaded through the mansion's corridors, her heart heavy with uncertainty. Did you go as far as fainting to fool me and meet Axion, or perhaps it was her own mother pulling the strings behind Arabella's actions? She also thought about her mother's harsh words. How could you be so selfish and awful, Anita? You should be sharing with your sister. She questioned herself. Was it mother's order? It must have been. She wants Arabella to have the best of everything, after all. Each step she took seemed to echo the resentment that lingered within the mansion's walls, a stark reminder of her isolation. Everyone in this mansion resents me. They look at me as if I'm someone who took everything from Arabella with no remorse. While contemplating, she doubted herself. Do I have to give everything of mine to Arabella just to be accepted in this household? Lost in this maze of confusion, she finally reached the door and hesitantly knocked. Knock, knock. With a creak, the door opened. She looked at Axion, and a poignant realization dawned upon her. Axion is the only one I can call mine. Do I give you up too? Axion turned with a smile. Arabella rushed towards Anita and said, Anita, and she immediately apologized. I'm sorry for worrying you. Whereas Anita, looking at her, just thought, You're here to take everything from me. Arabella gently squeezed Anita's hand and smiled. Where have you been? I was waiting for you. Anita continued talking to Arabella in her mind. So why are you smiling at me like that? As Arabella tentatively approached Anita, her heart raced with nervous anticipation. Having a glance at Axion, she began. Anita, but before she could finish, Anita abruptly said, You can go. Stunned, Arabella's face lit up with joy, as she stuttered. Are you really? Relief flooded through Arabella as Anita's words softened, revealing vulnerability. Upon noticing Axion's presence nearby, she whispered softly, Thank you? Arabella breathed, her fear dissipating in the face of unexpected understanding. Creak. She opened the door with a newfound sense of freedom. Arabella's face lit up with a genuine smile. Okay then, have a good time with Duke, Anita, she said, observing Arabella walking with genuine joy. Anita contemplated quietly. How strange. Arabella is the one who had a rough life growing up in poverty, and I was the one who enjoyed the luxuries of growing up in a noble house. She continued pondering. Still, somehow, Arabella is much more cheerful and innocent than I am. Creak. The door was closed. Anita's heart pounded with a mixture of guilt and relief as she turned towards Axion. her words heavy with regret. I apologize for my mother's rude behavior, Axion. Axion, with an air of grace, responded softly with a smile. It's fine. Anita continued in a respectful manner. I am sorry, but I think we should end our meeting early. Axion stood up from the chair as he spoke. All right. Axion, while stepping towards Anita, said with genuine kindness, Anita, I would like to invite you to the Archduke's mansion next time. Will you come to see me? Anita, feeling a glimmer of hope amidst her turmoil, still transfixed as Axion's charming personality enveloped her, considered it. My dear is telling me that I can run to him for help. I'll send you an invitation tomorrow afternoon, he promised. In the depths of her mind, she pondered. He's saying to run away from the house that has treated me like a nuisance since Arabella's return. And responded, All right. Anita, who had long felt overshadowed and neglected in her own family, continued pondering. And come to the Lacate Manor, where everyone will welcome me. In the dimly lit dining room, a table was decorated with an array of various foods. Bella sat at the polished wooden chair around the table, her delicate frame barely making a dent in the cushion of the chair. Her father's voice, gentle yet laced with worry, cut through the silence, addressing her. Do you like the food, Bella? A faint smile played on Bella's lips as she nodded softly. Yes, father, it's delicious, she replied, her voice barely audible. Her mother's concern was piercing through the air as she said, Have some more, you're far too skinny. Yet amidst the facade of familial concern, Arabella's thoughts were consumed by Anita, whose silent suffering remained unnoticed. Anita, relegated to the sidelines, picked at her salad, a symbol of her unnoticed presence in the family dynamics. But Arabella reached out with a gentle inquiry. Anita, do you not like steak? All you've been having is a salad. Anita's response was hesitant. She was avoiding Bella's gaze. Oh, are you watching your weight? I don't think there's any need for that. Bella offered her concern, genuine with a smile on her face. Her mother replied amicably. Anita's never been a heavy eater. Her mother's voice, tinged with concern, redirected the focus onto Bella, whose slender frame seemed to amplify the weight of her parents' worry. More importantly, you should be the one eating more. You are all bones, her mother pleaded. Her father added, That's right, you should be worried about yourself. You need to gain some weight. But as their concerns swelled to suffocating proportions, Bella, while fidgeting, apologized. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll have more. But her mother amicably said, Why are you apologizing? You did nothing wrong. Her father added his guilt. We're the ones to blame that we were stuffing ourselves while you starved. Her father gazed at Anita and said, Isn't that right, Anita? Anita paused eating. Her father and mother both wore icy expressions as they glared at her. Her father took up the reins of reprimand, his words echoed with authority and disappointment. I heard all about how you treated Arabella earlier today, he yelled. How could you be so rude to your sister? Your sister suffered while you enjoyed extravagant food and clothing in this house. Arabella flinched at the sight of her father's anger. Her father persisted. You should feel sorry for her. Anita clinked the knife in the salad while wiping her tears. Anita said, While I understand why you two feel bad about the way Arabella grew up, please don't use me as a tool to lessen your guilt. She implored, her words a defiant plea for acknowledgement, a refusal to be a pawn in their game of absolution. Her father furiously yelled, Anita, how dare you say such things in front of your sister? Arabella stuttered nervously, finally unable to bear the weight of their disdain any longer. Anita rose from her seat, her resolve steeling against their taunts. I'll excuse myself so you three can keep playing house, she declared, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. Her mother's gaze burned with fury as Anita dared to defy their expectations. How dare you? She spat, her words laced with venom. Ignoring her mother's searing glare, Anita turned to leave, her footsteps echoing in the strained silence. But her mother's anger refused to be contained. Hey, sit back down right now, she demanded, her voice rising to a crescendo. Her father's belated call of her name only added to the chaos, a feeble attempt to halt her retreat. "Anita," he shouted. Meanwhile, terrified, Arabella nudged and accidentally dropped the fork from her hand. Anita's mother attempted to rein in her husband's outburst. "Darling, you mustn't yell in front of Arabella, you're scaring her," she implored. The concern in her voice stood in stark juxtaposition to her earlier hostility. While seated, scared Arabella apologized as she reached down to retrieve her fork. "I am sorry." But her father's sudden realization softened his tone as he tenderly addressed her. "Noelle apologized, dear. I wasn't mad at you." Arabella sat on the floor, conversing with her father while the maids cleaned up the spilled food. Her father added, "I was worried that Anita may have hurt your feelings. Pay no mind to what she says, she's always been difficult." Arabella listened to her father carefully. Click-clack, Anita angrily swung open the door, the noise audible in the dining room. At this noise, Arabella just turned and said quietly, "Anita." Arabella's mother, seeking solace for her daughter, whispered to her husband, "Darling, are you really going to let Anita behave like that?" Her husband, with grit, contemplated and ordered a maid. "Tell Anita I need to see her in my office in an hour." Upon hearing her father's directive, Anita mused. "He told me to see him in an hour." While retrieving a book from the bookshelf, she pondered, "But it'll take him at least 2 until he's done fawning over his beloved daughter." While stepping towards the sofa, she said, "I'll just read a book until then." Anita, lost in the pages of a tome chronicling the empire's origins, mused. "This book is about the founding of the empire." As she flipped through its pages, she admitted, "It's not exactly an exciting book, but I like it because it talks about Lake Alkent, recalling its significance." She reflected. Alkent, the spirit animal that aided the first emperor in founding the empire, is supposedly from this lake. Anita amusedly said, "Just thinking about the lake makes me feel better, because it reminds me of who I met there." Suddenly, a vivid flashback emerged. A young girl holding a woman in the lake, the girl carrying the lady out of the water, the girl coughing out and expelling water. The girl wondered at something, a boy with azure eyes, a boy with a captivating demeanor and golden hair. She mused, "Lake Alcante is where I met a boy with eyes bluer than this legendary lake, 8 years ago." Amidst the table adorned with an array of delectable treats, laughter and conversation filled the air. Seated around the opulent table were 2 elegant ladies accompanied by their enchanting young daughters. "Look at all those white flowers!" exclaimed one of the ladies, her gaze drawn to the resplendent flowers adorning the surroundings, was awestruck by the sight. One of the little girls could not contain her wonder. "Oh my!" she exclaimed with a mix of delight and curiosity. Joining in the admiration, the other lady expressed her intrigue. "I wonder what they're called." Among the gathering was 9-year-old Anita Renard, a picture of youthful innocence and curiosity. Observing the scene with a cup of tea in hand, Rachel Savi, the eldest daughter of Count Savi, addressed Lady Renard with a hint of concern. "Miss Renard, you've just been staring at the lake this whole time. You must be bored." Turning her attention from the serene vista of the lake, Lady Renard reassured, "Of course not." Miss Savi, with a pointed glance towards Anita, sought to re-engage her attention. "So you would recall what I was just talking about, wouldn't you?" Caught momentarily off guard, Anita flashed a sheepish smile before swiftly responding. "Indeed I do. The flower you were wondering is called Rabina. It's a flower with a scent as powerful as its beauty." With a polite nod, she added, "I hope that helps." Satisfied with the response, Lady Renard acknowledged, "Yes, well, thank you." As the afternoon tea continued, Anita, her youthful exuberance momentarily subdued, silently pondered, "I wonder how much longer I have to be here." The park adjacent to Lake Alkent was renowned as a favored rendezvous for the aristocracy. Here, young noble ladies often convened for afternoon tea, and today's gathering was no exception. Miss Renard's stern gaze pierced Anita as she scolded her softly. "Though I had a separate reason for coming, that one keeps glaring at you. You should try to befriend her." Adding a touch of assurance, she continued, "They want to be friends with you." Anita, though aware of the truth, tapped her temple and pondered silently. "No way. What they want is to be close to my family." Seated at the table with others, Anita's mind drifted. "This mode of light is a low-level spirit only I can see. I first met it here 2 years ago, recalling the comforting melody it brought. Whenever I'm near Lake Alkent, I can hear its voice." Anita mused. Perhaps it held the magic that could aid her parents in finding her lost sister. To safeguard this possibility, Anita resolved to keep it a secret, feeling a unique connection to the voice. Anita pondered. "I wonder why only I can speak to this. It doesn't seem like anyone else can sense its presence." The voice pierced her thoughts urgently. "Anita, someone fell in the lake." Anita scanned the surroundings, desperation creeping in as no one moved to help. "Is there no one around to help?" As panic set in, she realized there was no time for explanations. "No, there isn't." She started to lose consciousness. "So she needs help immediately." Conflicted, Anita clenched her dress tightly, pondering her options. "Should I ask everyone to go on a walk?" she wondered, only to answer herself. "No. If she's already losing consciousness, there's no way for me to explain how I know that someone is drowning." Unable to articulate the inexplicable voice she heard, Anita remained internal. In that case, Anita, amidst confusion and hesitation, finally made a decision and rose to her feet, all eyes fixated on her, wondering about her next move. "I'm going to take a walk around the lake." As she headed towards the water, a familiar voice echoed, "Over there." Anita swiftly removed her shoes, affirming she already sank below the surface. Placing her shoes delicately on the lakeshore, she urged, "Tried to get people to come here." The voice interrupted once more. "I can't wait. Don't tell me you're..." Anita, propelled by a sense of urgency, moved towards the lake to rescue the person. The voice persisted. Hold on, Anita." Though bewildered, Anita pressed on, determined to aid the person in distress. Ignoring the voice, she leaped into the water. Splash! Anita spotted a lady in the lake and internally exclaimed, "There she is!" Despite her efforts, she struggled to lift the lady out of the water and cried out, "I can't pull her up on my own." Anita waited, hoping for assistance, and wondered how much longer until someone gets here. As fatigue set in, she realized, "At this rate, I might drown too." Then, a sudden sight caught her attention, filling her with hope. "What's that?" A pillar of water. Holding onto the pillar, they both emerged from the water's grasp. Astonished, she marveled. "A mysterious pillar of water saved us." Coughing up water, Anita contemplated the miraculous intervention of the enigmatic pillar. She sat there, still in awe, reminiscing about the miraculous pillar that had left her breathless. "A pillar of water," she uttered softly while refreshing this memory. "It was an unexplainable phenomenon, but I wasn't surprised." As Anita sat by the lakeshore, lost in wonder, a distant voice broke the tranquility. "Your Grace, someone was urging people to make way for Prince Lecary, that is, Archduchess Lecary. Please stand aside." Anita, while reflecting on the lake's profound history, explained, "This lake is part of the founding myth of the Empire, after all." Someone inquired the lady beside her with utmost respect. "Are you all right, Your Grace?" Then, out of the blue, a voice addressed her directly, expressing gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you, miss." Suddenly, Anita was jolted from her thoughts as a charming figure approached her, his presence commanding attention. "I am Axion Lecary," he introduced himself, his blue eyes sparkling. "Thank you for saving my mother." Anita was momentarily taken aback by his charisma but managed to respond. "It was nothing." That was how Axion and Anita met for the first time. "I don't think I told him my name back then." Anita mused, lost in contemplation, as she pondered how Axion had managed to discover her identity and reached out to her. And yet I'm the one expected to sacrifice everything for their benefit. As she descended the stairs, Anita's mind raced with conflicting emotions. The revelation of her parents' discussion regarding Arabella's fate weighed heavily on her. Feeling betrayed and used, she couldn't help but question her father's motives. "I did so much for my family, yet this is how they thank me," she reflected bitterly. Contemplating her father's past actions, she couldn't shake off the feeling of being manipulated. "I am really starting to wonder, why does my father treat me like this without a second thought?" Recalling the day she rescued the Archduchess, Anita questioned herself. "I was the one who rescued the Archduchess that day, so why does he act like this engagement was offered to our household in general?" Fed up with maintaining her obedient facade, Anita contemplated her father's expectations. Does he really believe I will continue to stay obedient and loyal to the family just because I'm his daughter and that's my duty? That makes no sense. Anita's suspicions about her parents' peculiar treatment gnawed at her. Not at her. I look nothing like either of my parents, she concluded, her sense of identity and loyalty shaken to the core. People have always questioned my lineage, especially as I stride over the crimson carpet in the grand mansion. Memories flooded back to Anita of when her sister Arabella's arrival sparked rumors about their lineage. When Arabella returned, the rumors only intensified, triggered by an overheard conversation among the maids. Anita's heart sank as she heard one maid remark to another, "Don't you think it's strange?" Then, correcting herself, she added, Lady Arabella, is the spitting image of her parents, but Lady Anita, it's strange." The other maid speculated. "Who knows, she might not even be noble." Caught eavesdropping, the maid gasped as Anita stared her down, her voice cutting through the air like a whip. "How dare you speak about me like that?" Anita exclaimed. The maid trembled and stammered, pleading for forgiveness. Anita left the room, pondering the doubts people harbored about her rightful place. She couldn't afford to lose everything to Arabella. With empathy for herself, Anita reflected on her engagement and her place in the household, declaring, "I won't let you do this to me. I won't let you use me like this." Standing in the dimly lit chamber, her eyes fixed on the celestial canvas outside, Anita was interrupted by a firm knock. Granting entry, she composed herself as a maid announced the arrival of Sir Elmot of the Lackade Knights. Reflecting on her dynamic with Harriet, her personal maid, Anita pondered whether Harriet's kindness stemmed from her generosity, or merely from the reward she received. Expressing gratitude, Anita commended Harriet's dedication and bestowed a glittering clip upon her as a token of appreciation. Harriet's face lit up with joy as she accepted the gift, whispering to herself about her decision to remain in Lady Anita's service. As she secured the clip in her hair, Harriet contemplated the differences between serving Lady Anita and Lady Arabella, realizing the benefits of remaining with Anita. With a bouquet in hand, she wondered why Lady Arabella, who grew up in poverty, seemed so naive. As she recalled Anita's usual gesture of patting her head, she couldn't help but feel disappointed by its absence. The sound of the door opening startled the man sitting, and Anita entered, radiating joy. Addressing Sir Elmot, she inquired about his well-being. "It's been a while, my lady. How have you been?" Sir Elmot, Vice Commander of the Lackade Knights, responded courteously. Anita remarked on his unexpected visit, holding something out from him. "I had heard you returned from the northern region, but I didn't expect you to come yourself," she said, glancing at the letter. "I expected Axion to send a servant." Turning back to Sir Elmot, she noted, "You're only here to hand me an invitation." With a smile, Sir Elmot explained his volunteering, expressing a desire to see her. Surprised, Anita replied, "How nice of you to say that," as she sat on the sofa. She inquired about his mission in the northern region, to which Sir Elmot responded that it was a small dispute this time. Reflecting on the bitter cold, he admitted his discomfort with the region's climate, notorious for its freezing temperatures and barren soil. Delving into the handling of disputes in the northern region, Sir Elmot explained that normally, it would be the Emperor's duty, but the Archduchy's knights were sent instead. Anita recalled her conversation with Axion about challenging the Emperor's orders, remembering his explanation about searching for something without arousing suspicion. As they discussed, Anita couldn't help but wonder if they were still searching for whatever it was. The delicate clink of the cup punctuated her musings as she expressed her relief that Sir Elmond made it to the capital before winter. However, Sir Elmond revealed he needed to report to the Emperor about what happened in the north. Before he could finish, a thunderous voice from outside interrupted, drawing their attention. Anita's mother demanded to know why she wasn't informed earlier about the guest from the Lackate family. A maid then entered, interrupting, informing Anita that Lady Renard wanted to see her. Anita composed herself, graciously replying, "Tell her to come in." As her mother entered with astonishment tinged with reproach, Anita couldn't help but ponder her facade, pretending as if she hadn't just been informed about the guest. Sir Elmont greeted Lady Renard with a courteous nod, introducing himself as Rick Elmont, Vice Commander of the Lackate Knights. Lady Renard, visibly impressed, exclaimed, "Oh my, the Vice Commander, you say?" as she sat beside Anita on the plush sofa. She marveled at Sir Elmont's visit, expressing disbelief that he had come all the way to deliver an invitation. Sir Elmont, frowning slightly, asserted that it was no trouble at all, emphasizing that anyone from the order would have eagerly accepted the opportunity, especially since it concerned Lady Anita. With a sly smile, Lady Renard countered, expressing surprise at Anita's close association with the Archduchy's knights. Sir Elmond respectfully clarified that it wasn't just the Archduchy knights but everyone from the Lackate house who held Lady Anita in high regard, citing her past act of saving the Archduchess. In a dismissive tone, Lady Anita downplayed her contribution, referring to the event 8 years ago. Lady Renard interjected, suggesting that it was thanks to the doctor, not Anita, that the Archduchess survived. Sir Elmont's glare silenced any further debate, while Lady Renard's gaze fell upon the letter resting on the table, speculating that it must be the invitation. With anticipation, she reached for it, expressing her desire to see what Sir Axion had written. Before she could grasp it, Anita intervened, apologizing to her mother and explaining that she hadn't read it herself yet. She playfully remarked that it would be rude for someone other than the recipient to open it first. Unfolding the letter, Anita noticed its exquisite aroma of roses and found a rose petal inside. She commented on Axion's sweet gesture of including the petal, reading the invitation aloud, which invited her to join him for afternoon tea in the Lackate Manor Gardens in 1 week, expressing his delight to see her, signing off as her friend. With a serene smile, Anita gracefully accepted, instructing Sir Elmont to inform Axion that she would attend. Sir Elmont acknowledged her decision dutifully. Meanwhile, Lady Renard contemplated her plans, deciding to send Arabella with Anita to impress the Archduchess. Expressing concern for Arabella's social skills, Lady Renard addressed Anita, emphasizing the differences in their upbringing. Anita, perceptive to her mother's intentions, internally questioned her desperation to make Arabella Axion's fiancé. Despite her doubts, Anita casually remarked that she didn't mind taking Arabella along, although she wasn't sure if Arabella would enjoy it. Her mother reassured her, and Sir Elmont approved of the idea. Taking leave, Sir Elmont headed to the Imperial Palace, bidding farewell with Lady Renard's reminder to take care of Anita. As the door closed behind him, Lady Renard wasted no time addressing Anita about the maids she had fired without permission. Furious, Lady Renard chastised Anita for firing her personal maid without consulting her. Calmly, Anita explained her reasons, asserting that they couldn't trust maids who badmouthed their masters. Despite Lady Renard's initial anger, Anita's reasoning resonated, and she reluctantly agreed to let it go. Anita echoed her mother's words, questioning the importance of the maid's dismissal compared to other matters. With a smile, Lady Renard revealed her intentions for Anita to accompany Arabella when she meets the Empress in 10 days. She explained that Arabella had never experienced such social situations and would need Anita's guidance to alleviate her anxiety. Anita frowned as she contemplated her parents' schemes. They were planning to offer her as a marriage candidate for the prince instead of Arabella. Imagining the potential consequences for her engagement with Axion, she realized that if the Empress intervened, breaking off her engagement would be simple. This would spare Arabella from marrying the womanizer prince. As Lady Renard rose from the sofa, Anita voiced her concern, suggesting they should ask Her Majesty for permission first. However, Lady Renard dismissed her daughter's query, stating that permission had already been granted and reminding Anita of Arabella's original right to the engagement. She admonished Anita to know her place and stop deluding herself. In the serene tranquility of a garden, a lady engaged in conversation with Axion, broaching the subject of Anita. She inquired if anything had changed in Anita's household since his visit. Axion's response was succinct: everything was the same. Expressing dismay, the lady recalled how Anita had expressed her desire to travel far away once she came of age. Contemplating Anita's situation, she realized that Anita might want to cut ties with her family given how they treated her. Prompted by this realization, she gently asked Anita if she would like to stay with them until she came of age. However, Anita, with unwavering resolve, declined, stating that she couldn't turn her back on her duties. Lost in contemplation, the lady reflected on her failed attempts to help Anita and acknowledged her remorse for not rescuing her. Curious, Axion inquired if she was worried about Anita. Clarifying, burdened by her own sense of guilt, Anita expressed regret. She should have insisted on Anita living with them in the luxurious ambience of her golden-hued room. Meanwhile, Anita savored a cup of tea, adorned in a resplendent maroon and green royal max with a delicate white frill. Amidst her solitude, echoes of her mother's reproach lingered, reminding her of recent scoldings. Anita's mind wandered to the promise of familial unity from the previous day, contrasting it with her family's mercurial decisions. Interrupting her reverie, a gentle knock rapped at her door, prompting her to grant entry. Philip, the Renard family's esteemed butler, conveyed his message that Master Renard wished to see her in his office. Acknowledging his summons, Anita acquiesced, sensing his lingering concern. Philip hesitated, expressing his apprehension about her workload, but Anita reassured him calmly, despite his persistent concern. As Anita entered her father's office, he gestured towards the scattered papers, remarking that she should take care of the paperwork since she was staying at home instead of socializing. Standing before her father, Anita reflected on the situation, realizing that he had been actively preventing her from participating in social events since Arabella's return. Despite her father's reprimands, Anita couldn't help but feel the weight of her early responsibilities and her steadfast commitment to her family's household. Lost in contemplation, Anita observed the scattered papers and lamented that she was merely doing busy work that her parents didn't want to do themselves. Her father's voice cut through her thoughts, demanding an answer, and Anita couldn't resist a playful retort. As her father persisted in his tirade, reminding her of her future as the future Archduke's wife, Anita gently countered, pointing out her mother's lack of involvement in paperwork as the lady of the house. Anita doubted it would be any different with the Lacade family. Her father's frustration peaked as he slammed his hand on the table, yelling that he had had enough of her whining. In a scolding manner, he asserted that at 17, she was old enough to take care of the family's affairs. However, in a rare moment of self-awareness, he muttered, "No, thank you." Determined to make him see reason, Anita responded that unlike him, Axion didn't need help with such matters. Infuriated by her assertion, her father questioned her with quiet resolve, affirming that Axion was intelligent and capable of leading the household. Calmly, Anita stated, "Please do the work meant for the head of the house on your own, father," as she made her way towards the door. Her father's voice echoed furiously behind her, accusing her of acting out because of Arabella's return. When Anita reached the door, she heard her father's final decree to go to her room and reflect on what she had done. Undeterred, Anita retorted that she was just about to. With a resounding slam, she closed the door forcefully behind her, leaving her father seething with indignation. A week later, a carriage arrived, and Anita, adorned in a royal blue gown with a white frill, was lost in her thoughts. Suddenly, her mother appeared, reassuring her and reminding her to cover for Arabella if she happened to faint. Anita inwardly acknowledged the predictability of the situation as both she and Arabella settled into the tanga. As Arabella's nerves got the better of her, she struggled to articulate her thoughts. Anita sensed her hesitation and gently urged her to speak up. Arabella finally expressed her concerns, stating that she didn't agree with their mother's plans and wanted Anita and Lord Axion to be happy. Interrupting her, Anita questioned Arabella's idealistic view of sisterhood, prompting a slight but joyous smile from Arabella. Anita couldn't help but find it unrealistic directing her question to Arabella. "Have you experienced something like that?" Anita asked with a gentle smile. Arabella shared. "There was a family that took care of me in the slums. They should be living comfortably now." Continuing her explanation, she added, "Father said he sent them money as a way to thank them. Isn't that wonderful?" Anita responded skeptically. "Sure, if it were true." Mentally addressing Arabella, Anita thought, "But Arabella, our parents are not that generous." Arabella, clutching her gown, reassured, "Anyway, don't you worry. I have no intention of stealing Lord Axion from you. Trust me." Inquiring further, Anita asked, "Have you ever talked to Mother about this?" Emphasizing her point, she murmured, I need to add it or to your personal maid." Arabella hesitated before replying, "And no." Anita, feeling the throbbing in her head, remarked, "That means you haven't told them you don't want this. These people won't give up even if you object. They're too stubborn." Attempting to make Arabella realize, Anita continued, "How do you expect them to know what you're thinking, Arabella? Telling me your opinion means nothing." As Anita spoke, Arabella's worry intensified, causing her to tightly grip her clothes. When the tanga finally came to a stop, Anita announced, "We have arrived." While Anita disembarked from the carriage, Arabella remained seated, consumed by her concerns. In the serene surroundings of Lackate Manor Gardens, lush greenery and vibrant flowers adorned the landscape, emanating delightful fragrances. The sun's rays glistened upon the flora, accentuating their brilliance. Arabella, captivated by the beauty surrounding her, couldn't contain her exclamation of, "Wow!" Turning to express her joy, she exclaimed, "It's so beautiful!" Approaching her, Axion noticed her delight and remarked, "If I had known the weather would be so lovely, I would have invited you to Lake Alkent." Arabella, brimming with happiness, responded, "This garden is more than enough." As she admired the flowers, she couldn't resist commenting, "These flowers are especially beautiful." Turning to Axion, she politely asked, "May I smell them?" Meanwhile, as Arabella immersed herself in the fragrance of the flowers, she began to feel dizzy. Startled, Anita observed her wobbling figure with concern, struggling to maintain her balance. Arabella managed to utter, "It smells so nice." Axion, with a smile, inquired, "Is that so?" Arabella nodded weakly, affirming, "Why, yes." Observing Arabella's worsening condition, Anita couldn't help but think, "She's turning really pale." Alarmed, she began to voice her concern. "Arabella, are you all right?" Before she could finish, Arabella staggered and collapsed. Anita's voice echoed through the garden as she called out in distress, "Arabella! Arabella!" Reclined on the plush bed within the luxuriously appointed chamber, Arabella stirred as her eyelids fluttered, catching Axion's attention. Upon awakening, Arabella emitted a soft murmur, her consciousness gradually returning. Observing her regaining awareness, Axion gently remarked, "You're awake." Confusion clouded Arabella's mind as she struggled to comprehend the situation. Experiencing discomfort, she winced abruptly, then straightened, her eyes widening in recognition. With a tender tone, Axion inquired, "How are you feeling?" Nervously, Arabella queried, "Where am I? Why am I?" Seeking to reassure her, Axion interjected, "You briefly fainted." Stammering, Arabella expressed concern. "I did?" Axion asked. "Yes, are you feeling better?" Still bewildered, Arabella scanned the room, noticing Anita's absence. "What about Anita? Where did she go?" In response to her inquiry, Axion gently responded, "She went to talk to the doctor about your condition. She'll be back with him soon, so do not worry." She acknowledged, "Oh, I see." The room was filled with silence. Axion was in search of Anita, observing his anticipation for her. Arabella reflected on her mother's remark. Lord Axion seems to have taken a great liking to you. Realizing the lack of connection between them, she contemplated. Mother was mistaken. Gazing at Axion, Arabella continued her musings. His eyes only brim with warmth when he looks at Anita. They only brighten when she is in the room. Restlessly, she dwelled on thoughts of Anita. Anita is a kind person. She may appear cold on the outside. Having a realization, she pondered. This is wrong. I want Anita too. She addressed Axion. Startled by her address, he turned towards her. Arabella slumped and said, I really like Anita. Axion, with his piercing blue eyes fixed, calmly stated. So. Arabella squeezed her hands and replied, I want her to be happy, I swear. I really, really want her to be happy. With a hint of hesitation, Arabella stuttered. It's what I. Interrupting gently, Axion interjected. I feel the same way. Arabella's heart skipped a beat as he continued. I too wish for Anita's happiness over everything else. As Arabella absorbed his words, her mind raced with thoughts. I think, she pondered, her gaze fixed on him. A soft smile graced Arabella's lips as she considered Anita's well-being. He'll be able to make Anita happy, she concluded, her concern for her friend evident in her thoughts. In the grand hall of Arcade Manor, a doctor engaged Anita in a serious conversation regarding Arabella. I suspect Lady Arabella Renard is suffering from sensitivity to divine power, the doctor said. Anita, visibly taken aback, echoed. Divine power? The doctor affirmed with a grave nod. Yes. As he delved into his explanation, he elucidated. It's something that is typically identified early on in life, but it appears she was never made aware of it. For surety, Anita inquired. Are you certain? Explaining the expertise of the doctors within the Archduchy regarding divine knowledge, he elaborated. All the doctors serving the Archduchy are well versed in magic and divine power. As you know, the Imperial family and the Lacate family received divine powers from the spirit animal. Highlighting the significance of such knowledge, he emphasized. Knowledge in such matters is a basic requirement for serving as a doctor here. Reflecting on the ordinary doctor's oversight, Anita mused. That explains why an ordinary doctor wouldn't have noticed her sensitivity. They wouldn't even think to test for it. Contemplating her parents' understanding of the situation, she speculated. Which means our parents definitely wouldn't know. Anita sighed softly, a smile touching her lips as she considered. They must have heard about her fainting by now. I bet they're dying to get her home. Expressing her concerns, Anita inquired. Can she ride in a carriage? The doctor reassured her. Yes, she should be fine after a short break. Upon waking up, Anita swiftly turned to a nearby maid and instructed. Then please prepare the carriage for us. She should be awake by now. Respectfully, the maid responded. Yes, my lady. As Anita made her way towards the room. She paused in the doorway, observing Axion and Arabella engaged in conversation. I feel the same way. Axion's voice carried through the air, with Arabella seated before him, attentive. Continuing, Axion affirmed, I too, before adding over everything else. Witnessing the interaction between them, Anita couldn't help but muse. They look good together. Engulfed in her thoughts, Anita couldn't help but speculate. Even if Arabella hadn't returned, my engagement to Axion was never going to last long. Reflecting on her decision a decade ago, she recalled. 10 years ago, I made the decision to cut ties with the Raynids once I came of age. Seeking solace in her reasoning, she continued. Which means that my engagement to Axion will be broken off anyway. However, a surge of anger overcame her as she realized something, causing her to clench her hands in determination. However, it still rubbed me the wrong way that they were trying to take Axion, my only friend, away from me. I won't let them do that. Lost in thoughts of Axion, she whispered softly. Axion, you'll stay beside me as a friend, even when we are no longer engaged, right? Observing Axion from a distance, Anita contemplated. I believe our relationship won't change. However, walking through the halls of Arcade Manor consumed by self-pity, she lamented. What else would I have left? As they both arrived at Renard Manor, Marquis Renard inquired of Anita. Where is Arabella? Upon entering, Lady Renard replied, I put her to bed in her room. With frustration evident, Marquis Renard slammed his hand down, exclaiming, So! Turning his eye towards Anita, he demanded, Why didn't you do anything, Anita? Anita's response was calm yet firm. What could I have done? Her mother interjected. Excuse me. Undeterred, Anita continued, I'm not a doctor. How was I supposed to prevent Arabella from fainting? Her father, attempting to rationalize, said, Anita, Bella has had a terrible life. Attempting to convey the hardships of Arabella's life, her father began. Unlike you, she grew up in poverty. You've always been selfish, Anita. Her father continued, but this is too much. Anita swiftly interrupted, her voice firm. I could never be as selfish as you. Stunned by Anita's retort, Marquis Renard asked incredulously. What? Anita clarified. I heard that you were too cheap to reward the poor people who raised Arabella in the slums. They glared at her angrily as her father began. You, Anita! Undeterred, Anita interjected. Arabella seems to be under the impression that you sent them money. Her mother's voice rose in protest. Anita! Unyielding, Anita continued. Also, let's make one thing clear. Who is more at fault, Mother, for sending Arabella with me when she knew she might faint, or me, for failing to stop her from fainting? Before Anita could finish her sentence, her father's anger boiled over, and he slapped her. Lady Renard intervened, desperately pleading. Darling, don't you remember that Anita has to go to the palace? Lady Renard persisted in making him realize. But you heard what she just said. Anita, reflecting on her mother's attempt to intervene, wondered. I wondered why Mother tried to stop him, but then realization dawned on her. But no wonder. Contemplating the document she had stumbled upon a few days prior, she mused. This is why I have no intention of bringing up the document that I found while doing the work that was forced on me a few days ago. Anita pondered further, trying to understand. I won't have anything to do with them in the future anyway. As Lady Renard restrained Marquis Renard, she admonished. You could have punished her once she was back from the palace. Marquis Renard, unable to control his anger, retorted. But she's not showing any sign of remorse. Anita, with a serene smile, addressed her father. Father, I'd look out for yourself first. A concerned maid gently touched Anita's swollen face, remarking. That looks painful. It's really swollen. The bruising might get really bad tomorrow. Suddenly remembering something, the maid's expression brightened. Oh, I heard that bruises go away faster if you hold raw meat against them. Should I bring you some? Mindful of the consequences, Anita replied. What if you get caught by the cook? Sitting on the couch, Anita realized. Don't worry, a ton of medicine will arrive by tomorrow morning. The maid hesitantly inquired. By the way, my lady, did Lady Arabella really just faint out of nowhere? Expressing her concern, she added. It's worrying to hear that she fainted for no reason. Recalling the reason behind Arabella's fainting spell, Anita had a flashback to when she asked Axion, Did you do something to the flowers? Axion confessed. I needed to check something, so I blessed them with divine power, though I had no idea it would make Lady Arabella faint. Turning towards Anita, he addressed her. Anita. Anita then looked at him intently, inquiring, Are you disappointed in me?